This is Hexas TV. I'm Scott Machena, and we're in central London with Intel on the day of the launch of their new Xeon server processors. And I'm talking to Tom Kilroy. Hi, Tom.
Scott, how are you doing?
Very well, thanks.
Good.
We were at a press event this morning. Can you just summarize what it is that you told us about at that?
Truly, this was a transformational launch in the sense that we feel it's the most significant launch since the mid-90s when we launched the Xeon, the Pentium Pro processor for the volume channel.
And why is it the most significant?
Well, when you look at the breakthrough in terms of what capabilities we're putting in the hands of IT, performance alone is 75 to 125% up over the prior generation, but we're also delivering return on investment like this unprecedented before. We're in this pretty rough, rocky economic time. Yeah. What I showed this morning was not just the performance, but some of the energy features and some of the other intelligent capabilities we built into the Xeon 5500 series can pay back in 8 months. So that's pretty significant.
Payback in 8 months under what conditions? What is the sort of comparison you're using there?
Well, the example I used this morning, Scott, was if you looked back and assumed an average install base, a server life is 4 years or so. You go back to 2005. You have 184 servers performing at a certain level. They're single-core servers back in 2005. If you want to go refresh that and replace that and maintain the same level of performance, you could replace 184 servers with 21 Xeon 5500.
And get the same performance as 184
same
from 4 years ago.
And it's an 8-month payback and 92% savings on the energy bill.
Okay, so with this great ROI, is it safe to assume that Intel's going to be upgrading all its own servers to this new technology?
We're on it already.
Yeah?
Our CIO was, because we talk at Intel about
you get a special deal?
Eating our own dog food. Well, actually we don't, because we buy the servers from the OEMs, of course, right? So we certainly negotiate,
yeah.
But at the end of the day, they're selling the system to us. But we're used to eating our own dog food, and frankly, we're like every other IT shop. Spending's really tight, so if you have a good ROI case, you got a much better chance of getting the order.
Yeah, and obviously, I understand, especially in the current economic environment, if you just ask people to buy a whole load of new kit, you're going to get a lot of resistance to that. So it's important for you guys to demonstrate that they actually be saving money sort of after a year or less.
Exactly, which is why when you ask me the question, I could go on about all the features and capabilities that are behind the stunning
But that's
increase.
the long and short of it.
But at the end of the day, our line is 8-month payback, and the rest is cash.
Yeah. Okay. In terms of CPUs, you're always going to be compared to your sort of chief rival AMD. I've spoken to AMD a fair bit about. I went to the launch of Shanghai a little while ago. Can you just summarize why you think people should choose Xeons or Intel server processors over AMD ones?
Well, if you noticed, my presentation this morning really didn't compare at all, because I think that the right...
We're used to that.
the right benchmark for us really is, are we hitting what CIOs are looking for?
Mm-hmm.
And frankly, addressing virtualization technology, building in adaptability and flexibility in terms of thermal management across the rack of compute, and of course delivering significant performance in the ROI case I talked to you about. So we're from the standpoint of market segment share, we've regained everything we lost when we were behind in 2004 and 5, and then some. So for us, success isn't a matter of gaining another point or two. It's really, are we able to catalyze the market to move forward, refresh, and kind of stimulate demand?
And is that, you talk about 2005, you lost a little bit of market share there. In fact, I noticed on one of your own charts there was a drop-off around 2005. Was that mainly due to AMD having a performance advantage over you at that time, which you've since redressed? Is it as simple as that?
Largely speaking, yeah.
Yeah. So it does ultimately, it seems commercially, it does come down to performance at the end of the day.
At the end of the day, the better part usually wins.
Yeah.
And, I think we did have an advantage in the sense that we had that 2-year drought, if you will, or 2-year period, but we had, from the mid-90s all the way up to there, a pretty good track record. So we had a lot of customers that frankly stayed with Intel in that time frame because they understood what was coming ahead. But generally speaking, you get rewarded for having good parts.
And despite you saying you're not particularly keen on referring to your competitors, I'm going to ask you one more comparison there. AMD tends to launch its server processors first when it's got a new generation of architecture, and then its desktop and sort of consumer stuff. You seem to do it the other way around. Can you explain why you do it in the order you do?
You know, Scott, it's this time we actually launched the high-end desktop first, and it would have been lined up right with servers, if we had kept to the original date. But the validation was so complex in this platform, and it was lining up that it'd be shipping in November, December, which usually is not too friendly for IT.
I see.
So we ended up splitting the launch and deciding to launch, because most of our OEM customers and enterprise customers wouldn't have appreciated a launch in the November, December timeframe. So we launched high-end desktop first, but if you recall back in 2006 with the Core microarchitecture, Woodcrest, we led with servers there.
Oh, right.
So
Okay,
I think it varies, and before that it was mobile. So I think
there isn't a set sort of cadence,
really
a set
isn't.
order.
I think a lot of it depends on the complexity of the validation on this server part for Nehalem was extreme, and frankly, that was one of the reasons why we felt it was right to push off and do that extra degree of validation on the server platform and wait till Q1. So there's factors like that you got to consider.
Okay. But in short, this timing suited you best, or
yeah,
suited the market best as well.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting. You mentioned Nehalem a few times there. As IT journalists, we get quite familiar with the many code names chucked at us from various companies. But normally, consumers or end users or whatever don't have to encounter those code names. I've seen Nehalem. We were in a shop earlier today, and I noticed someone in the shop was talking about a new workstation and actually mentioning Nehalem just on their material there. Has that been a conscious thing by Intel to make Nehalem a more sort of prominent, recognized word?
It hasn't. Unfortunately, part of the way we have so many code names we use for all our processors, chipsets, and whatever, they get a life of their own. Our branding is confusing enough, and we've taken measures to simplify our branding. But if when an architecture is being discussed in non-disclosure or in Intel developer forums or whatever, 2 years before it comes to market, you can't use a brand name. So what happens is we use a code name that just gets written up like by yourselves, and it just has an equity of its own. But Xeon 5500 series is clearly the name. And although what I find in the enterprise space, the name of the part isn't as important as the overall level of performance and the workload. Yeah. Whereas in the consumer space, I think the brand is much more relevant.